The night was thick, with an oppressive quiet as Sam, a long-haul trucker, cruised down Route 666, the stretch of highway infamous for its eerie reputation. The dark road seemed endless, and the only sound was the steady hum of his engine, slicing through the midnight silence. Sam had driven this route countless times, but tonight something felt off. The air felt heavier, colder, as if something was watching him from the darkness. A few miles into the drive, he glanced into his rearview mirror. A truck, headlights off, was tailing him too closely. He tried to ignore it at first, chalking it up to a sleepy mind, but the truck never seemed to fall back. It was always there, just a few feet behind him, its shadow looming menacingly. Sam slammed on the accelerator, but no matter how fast he went, the phantom truck stayed with him, its headlights now appearing, blinding him. Panic began to set in. He could feel his heart race in his chest as the truck seemed to match his every move. The speedometer climbed higher, but the other truck remained unfazed. Sweat trickled down his forehead as Sam frantically searched for a way to escape this relentless chase. Suddenly, the phantom truck swerved past him, so close that Sam could have sworn he saw the driver's face, pale, cold, and lifeless, like a corpse. Sam's breath caught in his throat, his mind racing. What was this? Who was this? The other truck veered off the road and disappeared into the woods, as if swallowed by the very ground itself. Sam's hands shook on the steering wheel. He couldn't stop looking in the rearview mirror, half expecting the truck to reappear. But the road was empty, for now. He tried to breathe, but his heart kept pounding, like it was trying to escape his chest. The road ahead stretched into the darkness. Sam kept driving, but the unease gnawed at him. There was something wrong, something he couldn't quite understand. The silence in the cabin was suffocating, broken only by the hum of the engine. He pushed the accelerator harder, trying to outrun the dread that clung to him. As he passed a familiar bend, the headlights illuminated something ahead. A wrecked truck, its body twisted and broken, lay on its side in a ravine. The blood drained from Sam's face. He had seen this wreck before, the same truck, the same spot, and yet there was something more sinister about it now. The lights were flickering, casting an eerie glow across the twisted wreckage. Sam's foot hovered over the brake, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. It was as though something was urging him to keep going, to leave that place behind. But the feeling that something was watching him didn't fade. In fact, it only grew stronger, more oppressive. He glanced at the passenger seat. Empty. He was alone. Yet the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, as if someone or something was right beside him. The road seemed longer now, as though it stretched out into infinity. The faint glow of his truck's headlights barely pierced the thick darkness that surrounded him. He kept driving, unable to stop, unable to shake the feeling that he wasn't alone. Every so often, a strange noise, a scraping, a tapping, would echo from outside the truck. Sam would glance nervously at the windows, but there was nothing there. The woods remained quiet. Too quiet. It was then that he heard the faintest sound, like the scraping of metal on metal. His heart skipped a beat. He braked sharply, skidding slightly, then pulled over to the shoulder. The truck's engine rattled as it came to a stop, the vibrations vibrating through Sam's body. He sat there, staring into the darkness, trying to convince himself that it was nothing. Maybe it was just the wind. But deep down, he knew. The feeling of dread had settled over him like a thick fog, suffocating and oppressive. He couldn't explain it, but he had to know what it was. He opened the door and stepped out into the cold night air. the gravel crunching under his boots. The wind had picked up, carrying a faint whisper through the trees. It sounded almost like a voice, distant but clear. Sam froze, his blood running cold. The voice, was it calling his name? He strained to listen, but the words were indistinct. It sounded like a woman's voice, twisted and broken. He didn't know what to do. Should he follow the voice, or should he run? As if in answer, the sound of footsteps emerged from the darkness, slow and deliberate. Sam's heart raced as he turned around, looking for the source. Nothing, but the footsteps continued, growing louder, closer. A sense of terror gripped him as he realized that something was moving toward him, something unseen. His mind screamed for him to get back in the truck, but his legs wouldn't move. He was paralyzed by fear. The footsteps stopped just behind him. Sam spun around, but again, there was nothing there. Only the empty road, the flickering wreckage of the truck, and the heavy silence. He stumbled backward, his breath ragged as he slammed the door shut and locked it. The engine roared to life as Sam floored the pedal, racing down the road without a second thought. The headlights cut through the darkness like a knife, but he could still feel it, that presence, that weight, pressing down on him. He glanced in the rearview mirror once again. To his horror, the phantom truck was back, tailing him, its headlights burning with an otherworldly intensity. But this time the truck didn't just follow. It sped up, getting closer, until Sam could almost feel its breath on his neck. He could hear the engine growling behind him, a guttural roar that seemed to come from deep within the earth itself. Sam's pulse hammered in his ears. He swerved, trying to shake the truck, but it stayed with him, relentless. He wasn't going to outrun it. Then, as quickly as it had appeared, the phantom truck disappeared, vanishing into thin air. Sam slammed on the brakes, his mind spinning, his heart racing. The road was empty again, but he didn't trust it. He couldn't. The ghost of the trucker was still out there, waiting for the next victim. Sam's breath came in shallow gasps as he drove the rest of the way, his hands still trembling. He never stopped at that stretch of highway bay again. No one ever saw him again, and no one spoke of Route 666 without a shiver of fear. The ghost trucker still roams those roads, seeking out the next driver who dares to take the lonely, haunted route.
The truth about Highway 666, the road that refuses to die before we dive into the next terrifying story, let's talk about Highway 666, itself a road so infamous the US government tried to erase it. Originally designated Highway 666 in 1926. This highway cut through some of the most isolated desert terrain in New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. Over the years, it gained an ominous reputation for being one of the deadliest roads in America, with an abnormally high number of accidents, disappearances, and unexplained phenomena. Locals started calling it the Devil's Highway, a cursed road plagued by ghostly apparitions, shadowy figures and demonic forces. Truckers and travellers reported encounters with phantom vehicles, hitchhikers who vanished, and even time distortions. The legend became so infamous that in 2003 the US government officially decommissioned Highway 666 and renamed it US Route. 491 officials claimed the change was simply to remove the association with 666, but many believe the renaming was an attempt to cover up something bigger. But ask, any trucker who's driven these roads, the name may have changed, but the horrors remain. Highway 666, the ghostly hitchhiker. Welcome back to Highway 666, the road of the damned. In our last episode, we uncovered the terrifying legend of the homicidal truck driver, a phantom big rig that runs travellers off the road. But the horrors of this highway don't end there tonight. We dive into another chilling encounter, the hitchhiker who shouldn't exist. This isn't just a ghost story, it's a real experience, one that has been repeated by countless truckers over the years. A spirit trapped on the road, waiting, always waiting, the hitchhiker who disappeared. If there's one rule truckers know by heart, it's this: never pick up hitchhikers on Highway 666. But in 2004, a trucker named David Ramirez made that mistake, and he has never been the same since it was just past 3 a.m. The desert air thick with silence, the highway stretched out in a straight, lonely line beneath a sky so dark it seemed endless. David was halfway through his route to Gallup, New Mexico, when he saw her standing on the side of the road, barefoot, wearing a tattered white dress. She wasn't waving, she wasn't moving, she was just standing there staring. David slowed down. He knew the stories truckers had spoken about the woman in white for years. Some said she was a lost spirit, others believed she was a demon waiting for her next victim. But something in his gut told him he couldn't just leave her there. He rolled down his window. "You need a ride?" The woman stepped forward without hesitation. Her voice was soft, eerie. "You're going to Gallup, right?" David's stomach turned. How did she know she climbed into the truck? Her presence felt wrong. Cold heavy as they drove, David tried to ask her questions. "Where are you coming from the desert? Where do you live? Nowhere." Each answer sent a deeper chill down his spine. She never blinked, never shifted in her seat. Her hands, pale and cold, were clasped tightly together as if she was holding something invisible. Then out of nowhere she whispered, "You should have left me there." David slammed on the brakes. The truck screeched to a stop. His heart pounded as he turned to her. But the seat was empty. The door had never opened. There were no footprints outside. She was just gone, shaken. David drove straight to a truck stop in Gallup when he told his story to the other truckers. One of the older men nodded. "You met her?" "Huh. She died in a car crash near there, 1975. Every few years she finds someone new to take her home." David never took Highway 666 again. Some spirits are trapped. Others are looking for a way out. Highway 666, the UFO that erased time if ghosts and phantoms weren't enough. Highway 666 has another terrifying secret. It may be a hotspot for extraterrestrial activity. There have been dozens of reports from truckers, travellers, and even law enforcement officers who have witnessed unexplainable lights in the sky, strange figures on the roadside, and in some cases missing time hours that simply vanish, leaving no memory of what happened. But one encounter stands out above the rest because it left behind disturbing evidence: the UFO that erased time in 1997. Robert Gaines, a seasoned trucker with over 2 decades on the road, was making his way through the stretch between Shiprock and Monticello. A part of Highway 666, notorious for strange sightings. It was a clear night. The stars bright and unmoving in the vast sky. Everything was normal until his CB radio cut out. Then his headlights flickered. Then he saw it. At first he thought it was another truck gaining on him fast, a bright light growing larger in his rearview mirror. But suddenly it lifted. Within seconds the light was hovering directly above him, casting his entire truck in an unnatural white glow. Then everything went black. Final thoughts. The highway that won't die. Highway 666 may have been renamed, but its curse remains. Ghostly hitchhikers appear and vanish without a trace. Truckers go missing, leaving their trucks behind, engines still running. UFO encounters wipe out time and memory, leaving no evidence behind. Some say the road is haunted by ancient spirits. Others believe it's a magnet for the paranormal, and some even claim that the government knows more than they're saying about what happens on this road. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. Highway 666 is no ordinary road. So if you ever find yourself driving through the dark stretches of US Route 491, keep your eyes open. Don't stop for hitchhikers. Don't follow strange lights. And if you ever lose time, you might not want to know where you really were. Which story creeped you out the most? Have you or someone you know experienced something strange on the road? Let us know in the comments. And if you love true horror stories like these, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you in the next one. If you make it back, drive safe and watch the road. You never know who or what is watching you. When Robert woke up, he was still driving. The road was empty, the highway stretching out endlessly before him. But something was wrong. His dashboard clock was blinking. The time was 4:13 a.m., but the last time he had checked it had been 2:45. Almost 2 hours had vanished. He pulled into a rest stop. Hands shaking, other truckers stared as he stumbled inside. "You okay, man?" one asked. I think I lost time," Robert muttered. They checked his truck. Everything electronic had been wiped. His GPS radio, even the black box recorder, all erased. He was later told by air traffic control that an unidentified object had been detected on radar that night, but only for a few minutes. No official reports, no explanations. Robert left the trucking industry the following year. He never wanted to drive at night again.